My husband got a secret wife in another country, and she arrived at our door. When I opened the door that morning, I didn't expect my world to split in half. There she was, a woman with dark, tired eyes and a single suitcase at her feet. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "I'm looking for David Carter. He's my husband." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. The name, my husband's name, echoed in my head like a cruel joke. I stood frozen, the early light catching on the gold band still warm on my finger. I wanted to laugh, to ask if this was some kind of prank, but the look in her eyes, that mix of fear, hope, and shame, told me this wasn't a joke. It was the beginning of a story I never imagined I'd be part of. David and I had been married for 13 years. We'd built a life that, on the surface, looked peaceful. A small house on the edge of town, 2 children, Emma, 12, and Noah, 9. He worked for a logistics company that sent him overseas several times a year. I taught art at the local middle school. We weren't rich, but we were stable. At least, that's what I believed. Every time he left for those business trips, he'd bring back little gifts, silk scarves, postcards, chocolates from airports. I used to joke that he always smelled faintly of jet fuel and cologne. Looking back, I wonder how I missed the signs. That morning, after the woman, her name was Lena, spoke those words, I felt my pulse thudding in my ears. "You must be mistaken," I said quietly. "My husband is David Carter. He's at work." Her eyes widened, filling with tears. "No, he told me you were divorced, that you kept the children, but that you were no longer together." I stared at her. My hands started to shake, and I pressed them against the doorframe just to steady myself. "You need to leave," I whispered, but my voice came out strangled. She didn't argue. She just nodded, stepped back, and said softly, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Then she turned and walked down the front path, dragging her suitcase like an anchor behind her. I closed the door and slid down against it, my breath breaking into short, sharp sobs. When David came home that evening, he smelled like the airport, recycled air and exhaustion. He dropped his bag by the stairs, loosened his tie, and smiled. "Hey, sweetheart. Miss me?" I just looked at him. "Someone came by today," I said, keeping my voice calm. "She said her name is Lena. Said she's your wife." The color drained from his face. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then he laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. "Oh, God, Lisa, you can't believe—" "Don't." I cut him off. My voice trembled. "Don't you dare lie right now." He rubbed his face, pacing. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because a woman showed up at our home, my home, claiming to be married to you. Do you understand what that means?" He stopped pacing. His shoulders dropped, and for the first time, I saw it. Guilt. Raw and undeniable. "It's complicated," he whispered. Those words shattered something in me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, and the soft sound of our children breathing upstairs. Every noise felt sharp, wrong, intrusive, as if the house itself knew something had broken. David stayed in the guest room. He didn't try to speak to me again. At dawn, I got up, made coffee, and watched the first light spill across the kitchen tiles. My reflection in the window looked older, harder. I wasn't just angry, I was hollowed out. The next day, I called Lena. I don't know what compelled me. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the need to hear it from her, not him. She agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting by the window with a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She looked even more fragile in daylight. "I'm sorry," she said before I could even sit down. "I had no idea. He told me his wife left years ago. I believed him. How long have you known him? I asked. 4 years. My stomach turned. 4 years. That meant he'd been with her while tucking our kids into bed, while kissing me goodbye at airports. We met when he worked in Manila. He said he was divorced, but he still helped with his kids. We got married there last year. I only came here because he stopped answering my calls. I was worried something happened to him. Her voice cracked, and I felt an unexpected ache of pity. She was a victim too, of the same man, the same lie. That night, I confronted David again. He didn't try to deny it this time. He sat at the edge of the couch, hands clasped, looking like a man waiting for a sentence. It started as a mistake, he said quietly. The first time I went overseas, I was lonely. Things between us weren't great. You were busy with the kids. We barely talked. So you just decided to start another life? I asked. No, it just happened. She was kind. I didn't plan it. And when it got too far, I didn't know how to undo it. You married her, David. My voice broke. You built a life with her while living one with me. He rubbed his temples, eyes wet. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I stared at him, this man I thought I knew, who now looked like a stranger in his own home. I said softly, You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed the one thing I thought I could trust, our truth. He didn't answer, and for the first time I didn't wait for him to. That night, I locked the bedroom door. The children slept upstairs, unaware of the storm brewing beneath their feet. I sat on the floor, knees to my chest, and tried to picture the man I'd married, the laughter, the kindness, the small moments that once felt real. All I saw was a shadow. The next morning, I called my sister and told her everything. Her silence on the other end said more than words could. What are you going to do? She finally asked. I didn't know yet, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let this lie define me. I didn't throw him out that night. Not yet. Maybe part of me wanted to see what he'd do when the mask finally fell. Would he fight for us, or would he run back to her? He didn't do either. He stayed quiet, almost obedient, moving through the house like a ghost. The children noticed, of course. Emma asked one morning, her spoon frozen over her cereal, "Why is Dad sleeping in the guest room?" I forced a smile. He's tired, sweetheart. He needs space to rest. She nodded, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. Kids can smell secrets. Days passed like that. Brittle silence, forced smiles, and the faint sound of guilt breathing in every corner of the house. Then one evening, while David was out getting some air, I opened his work laptop. I told myself I just needed to check his calendar, maybe confirm his story. But deep down, I knew I was looking for something else. Proof. And I found it. Emails, hundreds of them, sent to Lena, to another address registered in his name. Messages full of affection, promises, even plans. A lease agreement, a wedding certificate from Manila, and then photos. One of them nearly made me drop the laptop. It was him and Lena on a beach, smiling, their hands intertwined. The sunset behind them looked almost mocking. My husband, in a linen shirt I'd bought him, standing beside another woman he'd married. I remember closing the laptop and sitting very still, listening to my own heartbeat. That night, I packed a small suitcase and took the kids to my sister's place. I didn't tell them the truth, just that we were having a little visit. But the look on Emma's face told me she didn't believe a word. David came to my sister's house the next morning. He didn't knock, just stood on the porch with that same defeated expression. "Lisa, please, let's talk." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "There's nothing to talk about." "I'll end it," he said quickly. "I'll tell her everything. I'll get it annulled. Please, don't do this to the kids." "Don't you dare," I snapped, my voice trembling. "Don't you dare make this about them. You lied to me, David. You built an entire marriage behind my back." His jaw tightened. "I didn't mean to fall in love with her." Those words landed like a slap. "Then maybe you shouldn't have married me," I said quietly. He exhaled shakily, lowering his head. "I made a mistake. Please. Lisa, I can fix this." "You can't fix something that never existed," I whispered. That night, Lena called me again. "I went to see him," she said softly. "He told me everything. And I'm leaving. I don't want to be part of this anymore. I thought I was building a life, not breaking one." There was something in her tone, a sadness that mirrored my own. "You didn't deserve this," I told her. "Neither did I." "No. But maybe now we can both start over." For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of calm. Not peace, not yet, but the beginning of it. 2 days later, David moved out. He didn't fight it. He didn't beg. He just packed quietly while the kids were at school. I watched him load the last of his things into his car. He turned to me, eyes red, voice low. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but someday I hope you'll remember the good parts too." I didn't answer. I just closed the door. And then I cried. Not for him, but for the woman I used to be before the lies. Weeks passed. The house felt too big, too quiet. I kept myself busy with the kids, work, chores, anything to keep from thinking. But late at night, when the world went still, I replayed everything in my mind. The laughter, the airport hugs, the bedtime stories, all rewritten now under the light of betrayal. I wondered what kind of man could live 2 lives like that, splitting his heart between 2 homes, 2 women, 2 truths. And I realized something. He couldn't have done it unless I'd trusted him blindly. That realization hurt, but it also made me stronger. One afternoon, Emma came home from school, her backpack half open, her cheeks flushed from the cold. She looked at me with cautious eyes and asked, "Mom, are you and Dad getting divorced?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, sweetheart, we are." She nodded, biting her lip. "Does that mean we won't see him anymore?" "No," she said gently. "He'll still be your dad. You can love him and still be angry at him. Both things can be true." She seemed to think about that for a moment, and then whispered, "Are you angry?" I smiled sadly. "Sometimes, but mostly I'm just learning how to be okay again." The divorce process was long, painful, and filled with silence where love used to be. But with each signature, each meeting, each step toward independence, I felt a little lighter. Lena emailed me once, a short message saying she'd gone back home, started a new job, and was rebuilding her life. She thanked me for not hating her. I didn't reply, but I smiled when I read it, because the truth was I didn't hate her. I pitied her. We were both fooled by the same man, and both survived him. Months later, I found one of David's old shirts, buried in a drawer, the same white one from that photo. I stared at it for a long time, then folded it neatly and placed it in a donation bag.
Closure doesn't come all at once. It comes quietly, in small acts of letting go. That night, I took Emma and Noah out for ice cream. We laughed, talked about school, about silly things, and as I watched them smile, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but from surviving. Still, sometimes when the evening light hits just right, I remember that morning. The sound of the doorbell, the woman on the porch, and the sentence that changed everything. I'm looking for David Carter. He's my husband. It used to feel like the end of my story, but now I know it was just the beginning of a new one.
It's strange how quickly people's whispers travel when something like this happens. In our small community, word spreads faster than wildfire. No one ever said it outright to my face, but I saw it. The sideways glances at the grocery store, the careful pauses in conversation when I walked into a room. She didn't know? How could she not notice? I heard it all, even when no one spoke. I tried to carry myself with dignity, even when it felt like the ground was missing beneath my feet. I'd smile at neighbors, nod at the teachers, show up at church like everything was fine. But inside, I was unraveling, quietly, privately, the way women are taught to do. Then came the parents' meeting at Noah's school. David was there. It was the first time we'd been in the same room since he'd moved out. He looked smaller somehow, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He approached me after the meeting, his voice low. "Can we talk, Lisa, just for a minute?" I wanted to walk away, but I didn't, not in front of all those eyes watching us. We stepped outside, under the glow of the parking lot lights. "How are the kids?" he asked. "They're coping, better than I expected." He nodded, hands in his pockets. "I'm seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I did what I did." For the first time, I saw real shame in his eyes. Not the defensive kind, the human kind. "That's good," I said softly. "But understanding doesn't undo the damage." He swallowed hard. "I know, but maybe it's a start." I didn't say it aloud, but a part of me respected that. The attempt. Not the apology, but the effort to change. A few weeks later, I got a call from the local paper. The reporter's tone was polite but probing. "Mrs. Carter, we received information about your husband's dual marriage. Would you like to comment before we run the story?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just my pain anymore. Now it was going to be public. I could have refused, stayed silent, but something in me, maybe the part that had spent years pretending everything was fine, refused to let someone else narrate my story. So I agreed to speak. Carefully, truthfully. I told them what I'd lived through. The betrayal, the deception, and the quiet decision to move forward. I didn't name Lena. I didn't attack David. I just told the truth. When the article came out, people looked at me differently. Not with pity this time, but with something that felt closer to respect. The whispers turned into quiet nods. Some even came to me privately, women who'd lived through their own betrayals, thanking me for speaking out. It was strange, realizing that my heartbreak had somehow given others permission to face theirs. One evening, my sister dropped by with a bottle of wine. She sat on my couch, eyeing me with that familiar big sister look. She said, "You're handling this better than I thought." I smiled wryly. "You mean I haven't burned his car down?" She laughed. "Exactly." We clinked glasses. For the first time in months, the sound didn't echo hollow in my chest. She leaned back, her tone softening. "You know, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you ends up saving you." I looked at her, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "How so?" "You wouldn't have walked away otherwise. You'd still be living with half a husband." Her words hit me deep, because she was right. A few months later, David called again.
His voice was calm this time. "Lisa, I've filed the final paperwork. The divorce will be finalized next month." There was a pause. Then he added, "I want to thank you for how you handled everything. You could have destroyed me publicly, but you didn't." "I didn't need to," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." He gave a soft, humorless laugh. "Fair enough." "David," I said before hanging up, "I hope someday you understand what love really means. It's not about having someone. It's about honoring them." He didn't reply, just a long breath, and then the line went dead. When the divorce was finalized, I took the kids to the seaside, a small town 2 hours away, quiet and salt-scented. We walked along the pier, eating ice cream as the waves licked at the wooden posts below. Emma ran ahead, her laughter carried by the wind. Noah followed close behind, holding a seashell he'd found. And for the first time in nearly a year, I didn't feel like a woman left behind. I felt like someone who had walked through fire and come out whole. Scarred, yes, but whole. One evening, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was from Lena. "Dear Lisa, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to say thank you. You didn't humiliate me, though I might have deserved it. I've learned more about myself through this pain than I ever wanted to. I hope your heart heals fully. Honest Ace, Lena." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my drawer, not out of sentimentality, but out of peace. Some wounds deserve to be remembered, not because they defined us, but because they remind us what we survived. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, Emma came and leaned against my shoulder. "Mom, do you think you'll ever get married again?" I smiled, gazing at the fading light. "Maybe. But this time, I'll marry my peace first." She laughed softly, not quite understanding, but one day she will. Because love isn't about starting over with someone new. It's about learning to love yourself enough to never settle for half a truth again. The world didn't end the day Lena rang my doorbell. It began. Painfully, unexpectedly, but it began. And if I've learned anything, it's this. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who break us open just enough for light to get in.